I like it here.
After 2 years of being on lockdown, I finally got the opportunity to travel again internationally. I began my long journey here in the Ozami City Airport on my way to Cebu City through Cebu Pacific.
Finally back in Cebu for the first time in a long time. "12:30 p.m. 2 hours away from my flight. We have lunch."
And it wasn't really long after until I boarded the plane. For my flight from Cebu to Singapore, I flew with Scoot. I can't even remember how long the flight was, but I think it was around 6 hours if I'm not mistaken. Thankfully, the weather was good. There was no turbulence at all. It was smooth, and finally got to Singapore. As I got out of the plane and into the airport, I passed through one level of security. We won't be flying to Ho Chi Minh until the next day, so we would have to stay around the airport for the night.
We just had our breakfast and we are just waiting for the boarding time, which is around 8:45 I think. Our flight to Ho Chi Minh, Saigon won't be supposed to be until 6 a.m. this morning, and it got cancelled, so we asked if we could catch another flight, but the only choice was Singapore Airlines, and that's what we're gonna be boarding in at 8 a.m. We won't be flying until 9:45 I think, so, and the flight takes 2 hours, so yeah, we're gonna be arriving in Saigon later than what we initially anticipated. So last night we were sleeping in one of the couches here at the airport because the hotels inside the airport, or the sleeping lounges, were all full. First time for everything, I guess.
We did a little bit of last minute shopping at a boutique inside the airport. But it wasn't very long until we had to board the plane and fly to Saigon.
Welcome aboard, sir. Turn right.
Alright, thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hello, 66E.
Yeah, this way. Go look inside.
Got seated in the middle. 2 hours later, we reached Saigon, and it was definitely very hot. The temperature when we arrived was 35 degrees Celsius, and definitely it was a lot hotter than what I was used to. As a person who doesn't like hot weathers, definitely I was uncomfortable wearing my hoodie inside the Grab car that we were in. For our stay here in Ho Chi Minh, we chose to stay at the Vin Pearl Luxury, which is supposed to be a 5-star accommodation here in Ho Chi Minh. Interestingly, the check-in counter of the hotel is located at the 48th floor, and right after we were ushered to our rooms at the 50th floor. And here is a little tour of our room. This is our bathroom, which is kind of massive. And here is our sleeping area. We got a corner room, so we basically have a 180 degrees view of the entire city.
Wow. Oh my god.
For our very first Vietnamese food, we started with Cook Kai Quan for our dinner, which is a restaurant made famous by Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, where they were seen dining after biking around the city a few years ago, around somewhere 2007. Of course, you can't travel to a foreign country without trying their local food, which I think is the best way and the most essential thing that you can do in order for you to get to know the culture better. This restaurant has a very unique way of presenting their menu, one that I have never seen done in any restaurant that I've been to before. And with that said, this is something that I would definitely recommend to anyone who is planning to travel to Vietnam and in Saigon in particular. PK Malt Room, which is such a hidden gem and was such an amazing experience. It's situated directly across Koh Kai Kwan where we had our dinner. The iPhone's camera is doing a really good job at adjusting the lighting, but it's actually a lot darker inside, which is actually good. It's a speakeasy bar and it feels very cozy inside, and the people are very, very friendly. They have an amazing selection of cocktails, but what I was amazed the most is they have an extensive selection of local drinks, and the one that I had is called Miss Saigon. It had this sweet candied ginger that you sprinkle at the top, and it can be an acquired taste, but once you start to appreciate it, it's really an amazing drink. The next day, we visited the Reunification Palace. This was the seat of power when the country was still called the Republic of Vietnam during the Vietnam War. We had an amazing tour guide. Sadly, we forgot to ask for her name. But during the first part of our tour, we were taken to the small library of the president. Then we were taken into a lot of the other rooms. We had the dining hall, the movie theater, and then the entertainment room of the president where he used to play poker with his friends. And then we will see the screening room for the movie theater. Upstairs was the leisure room for the first family where they would usually hold events and parties. And from there you can see at the balcony you have the helipad and see two small circles. That's where the bomb dropped back during the Vietnam War. And then you can see from the balcony on the other side the boulevard leading up to the Reunification Palace. Then we were taken down to the bunker where all the plannings during the Vietnam War took place. As you can see, there are a lot of maps here for the military routes. There are different rooms for communications, different government officials back in the day, and military generals. And this would be the president's sleeping area during the war. There were so many rooms that I was not able to capture on video, particularly the presidential suite, which had an amazing 60s mod architecture and interiors. And then the tour ended with the kitchen that they used back in the day. Later in the afternoon, we continued our museum tours at the War Remnants Museum in Ho Chi Minh. This was such an eye-opener tour because you could see the results of the Vietnam War, the atrocities of the Americans towards the Vietnamese people, and the damages that has been done to the entire country. This was the very famous naked girl picture that are seen in a lot of encyclopedias about the Vietnam War. I think a museum like this is definitely something that a lot of Filipinos are missing, and definitely something that we really need in our community to preserve our history and to prevent revision of history. I think people should be reminded about the wars that have happened during the past and a lot of important events in history, particularly the martial law. One of the most gruesome things that I think have happened during the Vietnam War was the Agent Orange. This was when the Americans dropped chemicals that resulted in a lot of birth defects, abortions, and a lot of health effects to the Vietnamese people. A lot of these people have survived even to this day, suffering from the consequences of the effects of Agent Orange, and some are still even bearing children carrying the effects of the Agent Orange on their blood. And I think that's a very important lesson to a lot of Filipinos because retelling history is not propaganda. History is facts. What is propaganda is when you do historical revision, when you tell people a different version of the history and a different version of what actually happened. Did I mention that it was my birthday? For my birthday dinner, we went to this place called the Manufacture Courtyard. It's a place where you have to go in, and inside there's a lot of restaurants. and a lot of the restaurants in there have really good reviews. One in particular where we had our dinner is called the Refinery, and I'm so sad I was not able to take videos of the food or pictures. We were just very hungry that night. After our dinner, we walked around the city for a while. One of the things that I really love doing wherever I go, whatever city that I am in, I love taking walks around the city at night. I just love feeling the vibe of a city when it's so alive and sleepless at night. There's a lot of lights, there's a lot of people, and for me, a city at night just hits differently. Here in Ho Chi Minh, they have a very peculiar culture that I honestly envy. As you can see here, there are a lot of people. Most of them, I can guess, are less than 25 years old, and they go out at night, gather around here, drinking coffee and talk with friends. This is something that I do not have back home, and honestly, this is not something that you would see a lot in the Philippines. For our nightcap, we settled in here at the bar at the ground floor at the Caravel Hotel in Saigon. This is a very iconic and historical hotel because there is supposed to be a bar upstairs that we didn't bother going. It's where journalists during the Vietnam War used to gather around to share intel and had debriefing. And after which we continued to walk around the city. Apart from walking around the city at night, I love discovering different convenience stores in different cities and see what they have to offer. They usually have a lot of local products that you can discover if you don't know where the grocery stores are. Convenience stores are a very good place to go, apart from the fact that I just really needed to buy water because I was so thirsty. This was our last night in Ho Chi Minh, but of course we couldn't leave the city without visiting the statue of Uncle Ho Chi Minh right across the People's Palace in a very beautiful French colonial style. I will see you in the part 2 where we go to Hanoi and Singapore.